Hey, 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 and welcome back to Corporate Underground and Ronan Leonard and Tony. This week, we want to be able to talk to you about titles and what they mean. Something that I spent a little bit of time in Silicon Valley, and one of the guys that I worked with, he turned around and took a $30,000 pay cut to get a title on his business card because he worked out that it would add $60,000 to his wage in the next job. I've always been confused by this. Do you take the money up front or do you take the title or position? There's so many people on LinkedIn and other places that turn around and say they're the CEO of a one-person company. Do you go after titles or do you deal with the person and what they have to say? Ronan, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? I think the titles, they always fake it till you make it, which is probably where people are doing that on LinkedIn. And there's that lack of, I suppose, confidence in themselves. Yeah, I think that to me, the titles are irrelevant. And I often share this story. I was 23 and I work on this cruise ship and I had a big argument with the captain, the staff captain. I thought I was going to get fired. And they were throwing their weight around. Oh, he's the captain. You can't do this and yada, yada. Anyway, I had a few drinks. I'd push back on them, let's be honest. And then a week later, the ship sunk. And the first people off the ship were the staff captain, the chief engineer, all of these people with their titles, and all these people that were professional sailors abandoned their posts. So to me, I'm always wary of titles that pretty much like that person. They mean nothing.
Ronan, what was your role at the time?
I worked in the gift shop.
In the gift shop.
Yeah, I might have been senior gift shop person. Let's get it right.
It's important because the lower gift shop guy wouldn't know what he was doing, but the senior gift shop guy basically was the person that put all the crowd control together, put everybody together. And this particular boat sunk off South Africa.
Wild Coast, South Africa, yeah. That's Wild Coast.
I've never read a pirate book where there was a mutiny from the gift shop guy. Like I don't remember that.
Well,
it's often required to have a good, but that's probably why there wasn't any mutinies, because they got rid of all the gift shop guys early because they knew they would show them up.
Yeah, attitude problems.
So just so that we know this little story, this was what year?
91. It was almost 30 years ago.
Okay, so we're going to put a little link onto the actual, so you know that this was actually true. And Ronan Leonard was the senior, and it's important that we put that in the title because we are talking titles this week.
I was going to say, aren't you playing into this whole title thing right now?
Yeah.
The authoritarian gift shop man who's come in, and all the captain, the first mate, or engineers, all the sailors have got in a boat and left your cruise liner. How many people? How many souls were on this ship, Ronan?
There were over 600 souls. Yeah,
600 souls. And you were now the captain. You were the captain of the 600 souls that were left.
I could have claimed that title. Yeah, me and a couple of others. In fact, there was a guy up on deck. There was a guy up in the radio room, and he was calling out "Mayday, Mayday." And they said, "What's your position?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "No, what's your position on the ship?" And he said, "I'm the band leader." He said, "Well, where's the chief? Where's the radio officer?" So, well, he's gone. There's no one here.
Ronan, just on that, there's a long history of band leaders being the last to leave.
Oh, yeah, Titanic, keep playing it.
So maybe this is like, a captain may leave the ship, and as long as the band leader is still playing.
I think he pulled rank. So there's rank amongst officers, and there's ranks among the plebs. So like, okay, well, I'm the band leader, so I'm in charge of staff, and therefore I could do that.
Just for my own interest, what musical instrument was he playing at the time?
Up on deck, I don't know. They did play a couple of songs when there was nothing else to do. It was like 3 a.m, and they started playing "Bye Bye Mr. American Pie," and then they got to that line that says, "This'll be the day," and they had to quickly change songs. They were stopping mid-song.
This will be the day that I sink off this coast of South Africa.
This will be the day that I'll be rescued in a couple of hours, hopefully, even though there's nothing around.
So, did anything happen to these titled people?
Not that I'm aware of. International water is a little bit tricky to persecute them or prosecute them even. We'll go with persecute. But yeah, look, it's one of those things. So I actually, when we came up with this title, I completely forgot about that story, but it ties in quite nicely to this whole thing.
You've had so many heroic stories where you've saved 600 souls on a plane. I was in a spaceship. I just forgot about these. This is very important, Marty. Tony, what time has a title affected your life? You know, have you been in awe of a title, or have you used a title to advance yourself in a particular area, like Rona did for being senior gift.
Like you said, I think that's more to do with rank than title. I'm the opposite. I'm a guy that started a company outside of uni, so I've never had the privilege of title. Actually, when I was saying to Ronan while we're waiting for you to jump on, the only time I messed up a title, and then I guess this shows my ignorance in titles, is when I started my business. I gave myself a business card and put managing director just because I saw that's what business owners had. But I wasn't a company. I was a sole trader, and I had to change it straight away. And that was a waste of $50 on my first business card. But yeah, I guess
half your seed capital at the time, $50.
Yeah. $50.
I've got 50 left.
Hey, you could have got an MD, Master of Disguise. You know, that's what you could have got.
You're very helpful.
Medical doctor, MD. Yeah.
But we're noticing, especially in the digital world, there's a bunch of bullshit titles. You know, you can give yourself like growth hacker and all this sort of stuff that people
ninja, social ninja, yes.
And digital guru and all this sort of stuff. And also in small companies, you'll have a director of everything, and even we've fallen into this trap of giving ourselves these titles when there's only one person there, and they become senior this and director of that. And I don't like it, but it seems that some people have this expectation that they want to be dealing with certain type of people. So I don't know if it's wrong or right. I know there's a lot of people that have bullshit out there, but like, would I take a pay cut for a title? Well, I really don't know, because that's never a world I've lived in. Even in my company, no one, like, if anyone wants a title, I'm going to throw the work with it, you know? So even if we're small and they want to be like a head of something or a team leader, I'm like, well, then you're taking the work that I was doing in that area. You know what I mean? Like, then that's not
Tony, I understand. Look, I mean, we had an office in Perth, and we had offices throughout Australia, and I had to get on a flight, and I missed the flight. I missed a few flights at that stage. But what happened was I rang up my guy in Perth, and I just said, look, find a homeless person, put him in a suit, and just walk him in and keep him really quiet. That's how much importance I had, because you would go to a meeting all around the country and you'd sit there and people would tell you their problems. These were the problems that everybody locally knew. But somewhat they needed to tell you as the owner so you felt connected to this. And what actually then happened was you'd get the same information, you'd pass it on, and then something would get done. The person telling you felt better because you were the owner, but you had actually no influence or context over that. I remember going to a launch of a particular product, and I signed in as the MD of a particular company, and I got in and was able to network and talk to all these people. All of a sudden, the standing of what I said I was far more important than my actual ability, but my actual ability far outweighed the title that I actually took in. So it happens a lot where people judge you on what you actually say you are, not what you can do, until you get caught out. There's been lots of times when this has happened. Ronan, has there been a time when you have found the power of a title to actually help you or hinder you?
Not that I can think of. I've found that for a brief time I worked in the recruitment industry, and I've just found that for the last 25, 30 years, and probably this is even before, they just want to put a label on you. And so these companies might talk about how innovative or progressive they are, but when it comes to recruitment, they say, I want this type of this kind of role. The recruiter goes, looks for that role, and the second you don't fit that criteria, it's like, next. You know, you could be the most innovative, dynamic person, but have no relevancy, for example, in Australia. So when I first came to Australia, people said, "Oh, well, I went for a job to manage 2 staff," and they said, "Well, you don't have Australian experience." I said, "Yeah, but I managed 25 staff on a cruise ship. We were balancing $1 million budget each week. I did rosters, I did KPIs, I did all this kind of stuff." "Yeah, but not in Australia." And they're going, "Well, so you speak English, you're telling me it's that much different that I can't manage 2 people." So that was the reverse of the label of the title. They just wanted someone that could manage 2 people that were Australian and fit in that person to that box and that label, and not thinking that anybody else could fit in there. So yeah, I've definitely been discriminated against for not having the right title in the right country.
Well, it seems to be happening a lot with a lot of people at the moment, and particularly men and women in their 50s who are trying to get jobs. You know, they've had a certain title, it's now been taken away, and they're now being asked to challenge other people to go in for a job or another area. And people are saying, "Well, your title's given you this, you're used to that." Is that something that you think that people take for granted, and they get to a certain level and they sort of then expect a certain difference? Is that hard to change, or is it just the person themselves that has that issue? Tony, have you met anybody that sort of, you've met? I mean, I've met a number of doctors that sort of sometimes talk down to you because of their title, but I don't know whether they've got the skills to actually enhance the information that they're passing.
It doesn't happen to me directly, but I do know that that in business, especially when you're a growing business, as you give your team more responsibilities, some people may struggle. This is where we had to start giving people titles, even though they're doing the responsibility and they have everything else to match. You need to create some bullshit titles so people stop assuming. You know what I mean? It's like that this person is good enough for them to talk to.
Okay, so
you
mean
externally?
External,
yeah, externally.
Right.
So a client or a prospect will go that it's worth my time speaking with, John, because who's John at this company? You know what I mean? Like, am I speaking with, a partner, a manager, a director, the owner? Like, everyone. The titles can sometimes make people on the outside feel like they're getting valued, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. So is there a time, I mean, what is the worst title you ever heard? Is there a title that you've just gone, I do not? I mean, like, I hear them all the time where people give you a title and I don't know what they do. You really don't know what this person actually does in the business, and confusion actually stops people from doing something. Have you guys ever had a title thrown at you just going, I don't know what that does? Or a bullshit title, I think it's a bullshit title, like, sales ninja, or,
there's that extreme where, like growth hacker is a title out there.
I researched growth hacker a few years ago, Tony. So it was the guy that from Dropbox who created Dropbox and created that viral marketing around get it for free, but sign up. You get more data, you sign up with friends. And then I did a quick Google search about 2-3 years ago. There were 21,000 people calling themselves growth hackers on LinkedIn. So you've just now also pigeonholed yourself with 21,000 other people all saying you do the same thing. But if you asked them what it meant to them, almost none of them would have done what the original thing was, which was massively disrupt, innovate, and create some kind of marketing, or let's call it hack for want of a better word, way of creating, huge growth and momentum. So they might be calling themselves growth hackers, but yeah, it's a BS title for 99% of them.
Yeah, but even like, I feel like sometimes titles need to be overly schmancy. They overdo it to try and make what someone may consider a job that isn't as. And I feel like sometimes that's an insult that the job is important. What's wrong with calling someone a salesperson if it suddenly becomes a senior sales executive officer? What's wrong with the sales?
I used to say to people, I'm the last salesperson in Australia, because nobody had salesperson on their card. Nobody. If anybody out there has salesperson on their card, take a photo of it, send it to me, and I'll give you $50. Because I cannot think of a person who's salesperson on their card. I mean, recently I was working with a company, and I went into them and I said, they said, oh, look, this guy's fantastic. We find it difficult. He hasn't sold anything in 12 months. Hasn't sold anything in 12 months. And I asked, well, what's his title? And they said, well, he's the sales manager. And I said, is it on his card? And they said, no. And I then asked, why haven't you got rid of him? And they said, well, because everybody likes him. And I had to ask, on your title, is it everybody likes you manager or sales manager? I mean, this is the point with a lot of these titles. They go all over the place, a direction to give somebody what they need to be able to do. But also for your customers to understand what those people actually do can be enhancing for you. Now, if that person's in sales, true sales is something about you delivering and asking questions and finding the right product for somebody. It's got lost in a lot of areas, but
wasn't it so much
something.
Yeah, wasn't it so much simpler when your last name was just what you did? So Cooper, Farrier. So Tony's a sandballer. I'm a Leonarder, and you're a Murrayer. So that what did you do? I Murray. It's obvious.
I Murray, of course.
The clue's in my last name.
Or you'd have John Tall or Richard Short, and he was short and he was tall. Or the Brown, John Butcher. He was a butcher.
Canada, yeah. The good old days.
The good old days when everybody knew everybody,
And you had your label for life. You couldn't be anything else.
You don't have to change.
Wow.
You can't go from Tannery to Coopery. No way. Unless you marry.
Married up.
You married. Yeah.
But then that gives you a different title, doesn't it? Why do women have to take a man's surname still or a title? Why does that still happen? I mean, Tony, you're married.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard.
You heard correctly.
Your wife took your name. Was that a thought process where you thought that would just had to happen, or would you have been happy for her to take something else? Ronan, yourself?
Mine's a no-brainer. My wife's previous name was Slow, so she couldn't wait to get rid of that one.
Yeah,
she was a fast track to get rid of Slow. Leonard's better than Slow any day.
Except it's a first name. Never trust a person with two first names. That's what I always say.
Well, Murray or Matthew.
I've got two first names as well, so you're right there.
So Tony, is there a point when it comes down to a wife? Or I've actually got a friend of mine who actually took his wife's name, and that actually caused a little bit of a fracture between a few people. It had nothing to do with it, but it was that unusual. But again, it's a title.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think an obligation is wrong, but I have no issue with people doing it, out of tradition or just out of social norm. But you should never do something out of obligation that if it's affecting you ever. It should be a discussion, not a force.
So if we're going to use the chat box, maybe someone can come up with some great titles so we can all have some fun at somebody else's expense. So what are the really wanky titles that you've come across, and put them in the chat.
Let us know the dumbest titles ever. I'll circle back as we run out of time to the start, Matt. What type of company exists where you take a title that would be better for your long-term career but would affect your income? I don't understand that. Can you actually shine some light on that? Because that has been boggling my mind.
So in America, it's very important. Like when I first went to America, I didn't have a title on my card. It was just Matt Murray. And we quickly worked out that nobody was taking us seriously. So we went and got cards made in America that with my business partner had president and CEO. And all of a sudden, everybody started to want to talk to us. That's how far they've gone in America. And that was in, I'd like to say 2000, 2001, 2002, when we were talking to people there. It's only got worse, where people see a title as the position, and that was able to do it. I mean, for most people, to be able to say that they are a founder or a CEO, it's very important to them to be able to go through and on their CV actually put down, I was the CEO or I was the founder. One of the things you'll do on LinkedIn for a lot of people is they'll go searching and they'll put in, are you a CIO? Are you a CMO? Are you a CEO? And it will drive a whole bunch of connections towards you. Where if you put, IT manager, you're probably not going to get as many contacts. Now, are you going to get more sell to or more bullshit coming through to you? Most probable. But I mean, there is going to be a point where your title means something. Also, I think when you're a little younger, a title actually allows you to sort of say, hey, I'm at this position. As we've got older and we've worked out that that's not as important, I think that's sort of faded. But in America, we actually had to get business cards printed so people would talk to us. And that's how, and if you'd like to think about it, Australia is usually said to be about 10 or 15 years behind America. And if that's the case, that's where we're heading. And it's sort of coming into fore now. I think COVID set this aside a little bit, where people are starting to talk more about who you are rather than what you do. But I think that's been a beautiful hiccup to allow us to change that. But before COVID, we were starting to work harder and longer, and our titles, if you were going for a job, what was your last job? If you said I was the CEO, but this leads to one more thing that I would like to talk about. I know we're running out of time, but it is about that position. If you're a sales manager and you had a certain role, you usually came from sales. A good salesperson does not make a good sales manager. But what happens if you become a good sales manager? You won't usually relinquish that role. You'll go to the next job and the next job and the next job as a sales manager. Same with general managers. They don't usually step down. They stay at that same role moving forward. Or CEOs. If you're a CEO, it's very unusual that you'd come back and become a salesperson. You're
the only way is down.
Yeah. The only way, yes. But if you're a CEO, you go, and I was a CEO at this company, I was a CEO at this company, I was a CEO at this company. Doesn't that mean that we're all learning all the time? So whenever you first take a role, you don't know anything. And unless there's some sort of training or sort of help, and just because you were a good salesperson that became a sales manager, that became a general manager, became a CEO, that line doesn't mean that you knew anything at the time. It's the old Peter principle, isn't it? You get promoted to your level of incompetence. Yes, very much so.
Eventually reach that level where, okay, I'm not good at it. But he was so good at the previous role, yeah, but he can't manage people or strategy, whatever it is.
Right, and exactly. So if you took it that 80% of businesses fail because the leadership failed, if you want to take that as a blunt promise, you've got to look at normal business. 80% of businesses are failing because management isn't stepping up, because the title doesn't match the ability.
Yeah.
Now, how many of us, 70%, and again, I'm going to put out there that all statistics that are used by Matt Murray or Common Sense are made up on the spot, but 70% or 72%, based on whatever I want to say, of managers, of people that leave because they don't like their direct manager. They leave because of that. And that's a title that somebody is either having over you or you want to move past. So titles do matter, but should they?
I think there's many
good statistic to finish on.
Yeah.
So, Tony, final words for you about titles. Would you use one? Are they beneficial? What would you do with them?
I think that the larger the organization, they probably have more relevance, just so you kind of know what you're doing. But even in that situation, a lot of them can be quite wanky. So I definitely wouldn't over criticize, put too much energy into a title and focus on what's really going on. Yeah.
Well, like an army, a corporation, you've got to know what a sergeant, lieutenant, a colonel, and a general do. Otherwise, you're going to. So, Ronan, what about yourself? Titles important, not important?
Not really. I don't think I haven't had that kind of experience that you've had. I would say it's far less important. To me, it's about the person and their capability and their skills, knowledge, and expertise, far more than the title that they carry around. But hey, I'm biased. I nearly lost my life because someone had a great title and was shit at their job. So let's leave it at that.
Hey, let's all, next time you're on a cruise ship, guys, make sure you thank the people that are giving out the gifts, because they could be the people that save your life.
You mean that floating Petri dish of COVID? Yeah, they're not coming back anytime soon.
Look, there is a reason why the people in the gift shop are selling a pair of shorts for $150 and a snow globe for $80. They've been trained to save your life. Remember that, folks, and get out there and
There you
support those. But if anybody's got any questions about Ronan's heroics, we will put the link to that story downstairs. It's pretty impressive. Tony, you know, if you want to talk to Tony, you want to talk to myself, you can find us on LinkedIn or just throw a question together. Love to hear about what the worst title you've ever heard, or a time that somebody had a title that didn't really match their abilities. That would be really interesting too. See you next week. Thanks a lot.
See ya. Bye.
Thank you.